Welcome to Agents Growth Academy. I am your headmaster. I almost said host. I'm your headmaster, Jim Schubert, and I hope that you are ready to grow big or go home. It might be a familiar face to you on the camera right now. His name is Casey Nelson, and he's going to talk to you about automating, innovating, and delegating. And I am super excited because that is something that I literally was talking to him before we got on the mic about this exact subject. So I think you're going to get a lot out of this episode. But Casey is Michigan born and raised, which is funny because the rest of his bio reads Texas, Texas, Texas. He's a Western Michigan University alum. Texan by choice, he says. He's a teacher and a coach. He was for 8 years. I'm going to dig in on that for a second because I was also a teacher. He was an insurance agency COO for 7 years. I do know this because I looked it up. He was the principal of the agency for a time as well. But he was Independent Insurance Agents of Texas Elite Texas chair 2 years. I think I'm saying that right. And Independent Agents of Texas Board of Directors for 2 years. Then he started a company called Stackwise, and I think that's what we're going to talk a lot about today because he has pretty much figured out how to automate, innovate, and delegate, and we're going to help you do that. He started that in August of 2021, so it's almost been a year. Almost happy birthday to you on that. To help agents and agencies install, build, and manage their technology and automation. Oh my good golly, that's what I think a lot of us need right now. Welcome to Agents Growth Academy, Casey Nelson. What's going on, my friend?
Oh, lots of things moving and shaking up here in North Texas, but it's an honor to be with you, Jim. I really appreciate the invitation and looking forward to a good conversation.
Yeah, my friend. And you and I were dealing with some technology issues right beforehand. So I appreciate you being patient and giving me a chance there.
Yeah, it comes with my day-to-day operations. Sometimes they follow me and sometimes I fix them for other people. Just, one day it's one thing, and one day it's something else.
Yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt. So you were a teacher. Tell me about that time.
Yeah, I went to college to be a teacher, actually. My mom was a
Me
teacher
too.
for 25 years. Yeah, you said that in the intro. What grades did you teach?
I taught mostly 10th and 11th grade English.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, so same wheelhouse. I was actually a social studies teacher and a coach, right?
Nice.
So the stereotypical like social studies teacher who's also coaching. But yeah, I moved to Texas in 2007 to teach. There were no teaching jobs in Michigan to be had.
Wow.
And my parents lived in Florida and I had some good friends from Texas. So I applied to a lot of schools in Texas and Florida. And I mean, I got just stupid lucky. I was
Yeah.
literally in Chicago O'Hare waiting for my connecting flight to Dallas to interview at a different school. And then the school I ended up teaching at, the assistant principal called me and said, "Hey, when are you going to be here? I heard you're coming to Texas for an interview." And I said, "Yeah, I'll be there in a couple hours." He said, "Come see me as soon as you get off the plane." I said, "Well, Mr. Miller, I'm in shorts and a t-shirt. I'll need to change." He said, "Nope, come as you are." So I found this school called Saxe High School, which at the time I didn't even know how to pronounce the name. It's SACHSE. I'm like Sache, like
Sachet.
so. I went into the interview intentionally trying to not say the name of the school because I didn't know how to pronounce it. I'm in shorts and a t-shirt, and I got offered the job, and it was like the luckiest, nicest thing that ever happened because I ended up staying there for 7 years. Ended up coaching softball, which was something I'd never expected. I
Yeah.
thought I was going to coach baseball and football, and I ended up coaching softball. And now it's my favorite thing to watch on TV. So, yeah, I taught senior government for 7 years and loved every second of it. And it's really translated, I think, into a lot of skills that have helped me be successful as in the insurance world, now in the tech world.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I tell you what, man, you must have had your charisma must have been on overdrive to survive an interview in shorts, not be able to pronounce the name of the school and didn't even say that's, I love it, man.
Hey, I can think on my feet. That's something that I was trained to do by my parents, I think. So it's paid off.
That's awesome. I love it, man. I love it. Let's dig right into this, bud. Automate, innovate, and delegate. You said that if this interview were a master class, that's what it would be about. Was there a pivotal moment for you when you said, okay, that's my mantra, because there's a lot of things that need to be fixed in that regard?
That's a good question. I don't know that there was one exact moment, but I do know that over time, probably a short window of time when I was running the agency, Integrity Personal Insurance up here in Dallas, where I was really lucky that in that role, my job was to steer the ship, grow the business, but not to produce. And I think a lot of people in that similar role don't get that luxury. So that mantra really came from the opportunity of installing a CRM and also training my staff how to use it. And then
Mhm.
that unlocked my staff's curiosity in terms of, well, what else can we automate? And they would
Yeah.
come to me pretty regularly with, I'd like this if it's possible. I'd like that if it's possible. And we even had sales producers say they wanted a text message on their own cell phone 24 hours a day, anytime a new lead came in that was assigned to them. We didn't mandate that. We didn't say you're on the clock 24 hours a day, but they wanted it. So those types of solutions and those types of problems that required solutions, I think that's really what drove me to create that mantra, because really anything's possible now with the
Yeah.
technology we have, with the CRMs, the AMS, with the Zapier type integrations. There's really no limit or very few limits if you're willing to put in the time and find workarounds. And that's my jam. I love the problem solving aspect of it. It's really great.
I love it. I tell you what, man. So you and I discovered beforehand that we were both sitting in Kansas City at
Yeah.
Jason Cass's Brain Share event last month, or whatever it was. It feels like it was only last month, I guess.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, all the technology that's out there. I've been telling people
Mhm.
recently, like, it took me a few years to wrap my arms around the larger agency that we have that I took over from my father. And I feel like 6 years later, after having done that, now I'm just like popping my head up, looking around and going, oh my gosh, the landscape has changed and I have got
Mhm.
to figure this stuff out. You figured it out. And I'm sure you sitting in that room was a different experience for you than me. I felt like I was drinking from a fire hose. You're probably taking notes going, ooh, I should add that to my stack, my just to Stackwise, right? So
Right.
I'm curious, just for those who haven't heard of Stackwise, tell us what it is. What does it do? Why would an agency or an agent want it?
Sure. And I think that my elevator pitch, not to make this a sales podcast, but it
No, but I
actually
mean,
kind
I'm
of,
inviting you to, so please.
yeah, well, it kind of explains it. Through me being a nerd and loving to build these automated solutions for the agency that I was at, I started to, through other groups like IAOA, people would start to reach out and say, hey, I heard you know how to do this, or hey, I know you how to do that. And the comment sections on those Facebook posts just blow up.
Yeah.
And I would jump on a Zoom call and someone would say, hey, do you think you can build this, or can you show me how to do that? Sure. And after a handful of those, I started to hear from people, I wish I could just pay somebody to do this. And it took a few of those comments to really get my light bulb. And it was like, yeah, there's not a lot of resources out there for people that would like to have these automated services built for them and then maintained for them
Mhm.
after the fact. I know there are now, but at the time I really didn't know that there was anybody doing something similar. And so that's really what Stackwise is. We consult on the technology that you're using. We
Mhm.
audit the CRM and what capabilities that you are actually, employing from the CRM.
Yeah.
And on average, we see it about a third. That's about the max that we see across the board from our new clients in terms of the capabilities of their CRM. They're using about a third of the capabilities.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's consulting, it's a CRM audit, and then we set up the rest of their CRM for them. And then we build, host, and maintain the integrations and the workflows that will help their business not spend time on activities that don't drive revenue. And I know every activity on some level drives revenue, but
Sure.
a lot of these activities can be so redundant or can be actually messed up. They can, if a human being is doing the data entry, there's a significant chance that something gets typed in incorrectly, or a birth date or a VIN, and then you've got new problems. So if we can just get that data to go from point A to point B to point C and beyond without any human being touching it, the data becomes more trustworthy as well. And that's another factor that we build into it.
Yeah, you and I were literally talking off mic about an example that I'm living in real time right now with a quote unquote recruiting machine that I made. And you were like, oh yeah, I made one of those. And we were talking through it. I was like, oh my God, I never thought about that.
Yeah. If you have a pipeline tool on your CRM and you have the ability to create, multiple pipelines, go ahead and make one for hiring. And then every time someone applies to an Indeed or LinkedIn or even a Facebook post, you could automatically pull that candidate into your pipeline so you never forget about them. And you could use the CRM's capabilities to communicate with them and set the phone interview. So, you could just have a day full of phone interviews and you didn't have to do anything.
I might be contacting you after this to help me figure out how to set that up, and I will
You
happily
got
pay
it.
you for that.
You got
Well,
it.
give me an example. I mean, that was one example, right, on the
Mhm.
hiring side, but let's talk like sales side, because I think that's what a lot of agents are
Mhm.
interested in. Like like you said, things that drive revenue. Give us an example of an automation or a workflow that you've seen agents have success with that you've helped them build.
Sure. Well, just on the most basic level, I think a lot of agencies don't even know what happens when someone submits a quote now or quote request form on their website. So
Yeah,
that sounds super basic, but a lot of people, they get their website and it's set up by Advisor Evolved or Easy Links or Forge 3 or whoever. And then they're like, okay, cool. So I'm going to get an email every single time a new quote request comes in. And that's all they know. They don't know what the prospect sees when they complete the form. They don't know
yeah,
where the data goes. And now all of a sudden they're functioning out of their inbox with those new leads that may sit there for a day, just depends what their timeline looks like. So
yeah.
instead, what we do is we make sure that every single new inbound lead automatically will be imported into their CRM and their AMS and will have some type of marketing campaign associated with it. Sometimes it needs to trigger immediately. Sometimes, agencies want it to trigger the next day or some other timeline. But that's a simple one that we can do, we can build that then can really branch off into a lot of other things,
Yeah.
right? Like a lot of people want a round robin lead assignment for their inbound sales team.
Hmm.
That's not an easy automated workflow to build. And if your CRM doesn't give you the ability to actually perform the round robin assignment within its own ecosystem, then
Sure.
it's something you have to build externally through a tool like Zapier or Power Automate. And
Yeah.
that becomes the kind of thing that I remember learning to build it and saying, this is so annoying and time consuming and there's so much trial and error and I keep
Yeah.
finding things that I'm screwing up. And I think to myself, now I know how to do it, but if I was sitting where an agency owner is sitting and I'm looking at the clock ticking and I'm thinking I have a million other things to do, I don't have 2 hours to figure out how to build a round robin automation. So that's
Yeah.
another example of like, a simple automation, get the form data into your AMS and your CRM. And then also, hey, who does it need to be assigned to? Make sure that flow happens correctly.
What would you say is the biggest ROI action item that an agent listening to this should otherwise implement, that just assuming that they're not implementing any kind of automation? Is it what you just described or is it something else?
I'd actually go even further back in the process and say you need to have written processes for everything you do.
Ooh,
Everything you do.
I'm
Because
going to instantly send this episode to my head of admin and finance because she is all over creating workflows, which I mean, I'm excited
yeah,
about. I know sometimes it's like, oh my God, we have to create another workflow, really? But tell me why it's important.
right. Well, it's super important because, for example, when we have a new client, one of the things I ask them in the discovery is I say, okay, if I was a new producer in your agency, maybe day one we go to lunch and HR and all that other stuff. So day two, when I need to learn how your agency expects me to prospect and sell insurance, what is that process? And
Hmm.
sometimes I kind of get the like shoulder emoji, right? And it's like, well, Timmy does it this way. So I'll have you sit by Timmy for a day. And then Sally does it another way. So you spend another day sitting by Sally. And it's like Timmy's system and Sally's system may work for them, but that's not going to help you grow your agency in any meaningful way because how can you replace a process or repair a process that's broken if there's no written step-by-step plan? And it
Yeah.
also applies directly to automation, because it's extremely difficult to automate something if it doesn't happen in the same order every single time.
Yeah.
And I'm not advocating that you turn your people into robots, but I am advocating that you give them a lane to stay in,
Yeah.
and a path to follow, and give them some leeway within that if you want to. But there's got to be a process in place, and writing it down will make a massive difference in the way your business operates towards automation.
That's a good tip. I like that. You talked about, only a third of CRMs are really being utilized. How can you maximize those? What are some steps that agents that they need to take?
There's no magic bullet to that answer. What I believe is happening in the industry is that people are signing up for a CRM product, and some people do have shiny object syndrome, but they're all great. Like, they all
Yeah.
do things really well. And they also have things that they aren't so great at. But whatever was the pain point that drove somebody to either start with a CRM or switch to a new CRM becomes the primary focus of their onboarding with that company. And then once that's been accomplished, or once that pain point has been alleviated, I almost feel like agencies don't push into the next phase of the CRM. So most commonly, people sign up for a CRM and they want it for prospecting and sales pipeline management. Great.
Mhm.
That's a really important thing to do. But they also provide a service center or pipeline or service task management. They also help you manage your renewals. They also help you, cycle through past clients or dead leads. And so many people have all these leads sitting in their CRM that they didn't sell, but they haven't set up that last little bit to pull them back into their pipeline 6 months or 8 months later. So I think that that's what's happening is people, they solve the first pain point, and then they say that was really hard, I don't want to do that again, and they end up kind of just using that third, and that's it.
So I have to imagine you're pretty well versed with a lot of different software and CRM, agency management system, because you're the one that's got to figure out how to link all these together, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Man, that is a lot of work. Like, I just cringe thinking about having to learn all those. But
Well, the nice part is with the CRM uh, area, all CRMs are going to do a lot of the same things. They're
mhm,
just maybe doing them slightly differently, or
yeah,
their interface looks a little bit different.
yeah,
It's and that for us it becomes easier. It's like people say that once you learn a second language, it becomes easier to learn a third and a fourth and fifth. I
yeah,
think that same principle actually applies. It's like technical knowledge. Once you
yeah,
learn one system, it's easier to learn a third and a fourth system. So for us, that's another reason for outsourcing. It is, we can actually help you train your staff on the
yeah.
systems as well. Because going back to my teacher days, I think you probably remember this too. Sometimes another teacher could come into your room and say the exact same thing you've been saying for 3 months, and the kids are like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." Like, I've only told you this 40 times,
Yeah,
but just having a different voice in the room can
yeah,
sometimes help. And then, with my own experience as a teacher, I think that helps me communicate and teach people to use the CRM and the AMS differently, because I'm just used to teaching with people that learn in different ways. And
yeah,
an agency owner is not necessarily somebody who's got the experience teaching people how to use something in different ways. And they haven't even had the opportunity probably to become an expert in the program themselves.
yeah.
So it's a difficult process to set it up and really get your team to buy in and train them effectively on your
That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. A couple of things I looked at on Stackwise's website that I was curious about. Automated ringless voicemail. Can you share with me and the audience what that is?
own. Yes, there's a few vendors out there that you can use to provide that. That's not like some technology that we came up with. It's just a program that we like to use. And what that does is it allows you as a business to send a pre-recorded message to either clients or prospects with some degree of specificity. So you could have, if you had 4 producers, you can have all 4 producers record an individual voicemail, maybe trying to follow up with a prospect that's been in their pipeline for 10 days. Let's just use that as an example. So
Okay.
in the new client, or I'm sorry, in the new prospect campaign on the 10th day, what we would do is we would, it depends on the system that we're using, but we would use a couple different workarounds to effectively trigger a voicemail that is sent to the prospect's phone with hopefully no rings and maybe one ring, but usually not more than that, so that there's not really even an opportunity for them to answer the phone. It just deposits that voicemail right there on their phone.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I've received them in the past and I didn't know what they were. I just thought, oh, occasionally my wife leaves a voicemail and the phone didn't ring. Like, it
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
So it's just an extra way to get a call touch in when it's something that's not critically time sensitive, right? Like, you don't want to do that when like someone's policies pending cancel, but you might want to do that 90 days before their renewal, just so that they get a touch point from you before they get that renewal quote from their carrier.
That's what Chris Paradiso was talking
Mm-hmm.
about when he got
Yeah.
up there at BrainShare, right? I forgot
Mm-hmm.
the terminology he used, but
Mm-hmm.
something like a drop, something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Voicemail drop. I felt very, I had like a great feeling inside when I was like, Chris is doing the same thing that I'm doing. And that makes me feel like really like I'm on the right track, because that
Yeah.
guy is brilliant and knows exactly what to do. So yeah, with most of our clients, that's one of the things we build out it when we get to the renewal section of their pipeline. It's been pretty popular.
That's pretty cool. That's like unbelievably cool. And yes, I agree. I know that I have received those before. I just never, I just thought it was like a glitch. Like, oh, I don't know why it didn't ring, but I got a voicemail.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Right.
Nobody
Yeah.
ever stops to think like,
No.
did I just get voicemail dropped? Like, nobody knows.
Yeah. Right. And I mean, I did have one person I was prospecting. Actually, they must have been looking at their phone when it came through and they answered it, and they just heard my recording. And I mean, that's possible, but
Yeah.
really it's a good point to also say that within automation, something that anybody listening to this or watching this should know is that automation will only work as well as the data that's pushing it.
Yeah.
So if you want happy birthday emails and voicemails to go out on their birthday, then you need to make sure you have their birthday correct. I know that sounds silly, but some people, they gloss over some details, and you can't really do that.
Yeah.
But your automation journey will have errors. You will send the wrong thing at the wrong time, either accidentally or because your data was wrong. And going back to something we said earlier, like, just think on your feet, laugh it off,
Yeah.
call them and say, hey, my bad, we're using a new system and I hit the wrong button or whatever.
Yeah.
But some people get really scared of that. And in our business and sales, I think any touch is a good touch as long
Yeah.
as you didn't scare them into thinking their policy canceled, right? That's probably the only bad touch.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. It's like any publicity is good publicity.
Right.
Sort
Yeah.
of.
Most publicity is good
Yeah,
publicity.
most. Before we get into the rapid fire round, I'm curious.
Mhm.
Do you have a favorite case study from one of your clients, whether you name the name or not, but just something
Mhm.
that sticks out to you as like, yeah, we solved some awesome problem or problems for them.
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, one that's something that's common for Ring Central users, and
Okay.
Ring Central, and I don't mean to bash Ring Central. I'm not saying anything bad about them. In fact, they play really nice with others from an automation perspective, which is
Yeah.
helpful, but they don't save their call recordings for very long. And a
Mm.
lot of users don't realize that. So one thing that we've built for many Ring Central users is an automated backup of call recordings within either like OneDrive or G Suite, just kind of depends what ecosystem they're using.
Yeah.
And what we do then is we automatically pull that call recording out of Ring Central. We back it up someplace where the agency is going to be able to get to it for obviously for E&O purposes, but also
Yeah.
someplace that their agents can get to it if they needed to, go back and listen to some number that they got incorrect. But it's a pain point that a lot of people don't realize until it's too late. And then all of a sudden, if you had some kind of E&O issue and you need to go back and get a call recording and you think, oh no, like you have that horrible sinking feeling in your stomach when you realize that call recording is not available. So an automated process could save that from ever happening.
Okay, so for those who are not watching this, which most people listen to this podcast instead of watch it, you might have noticed there was like this huge grin on my face. Casey, we are literally experiencing the same thing, and I'm not afraid to say who they are. It's Momentum. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but
No.
it's a VoIP provider, and we've had the exact same issue that you just described. They changed their phone recording uh, software on the back end, whereas it was there forever. Now we only have like 90 days to retrieve it. Otherwise it's lost. And yeah, we rely heavily on those. We have used those call recordings on, a regular enough basis that we need them. So, um,
Absolutely.
yeah, you and I will be talking afterwards at some point because I actually have an immediate need to fix this. So,
Sure.
well
Sure.
done. You may have just earned yourself a client from this
Okay.
podcast.
Unintentional benefit. I'll take it.
Fantastic, man. Wow, good stuff. We could keep going forever, but I want to be cognizant of your time. Let's get into the rapid fire round.
Okay.
I'm
Excellent.
curious, one piece, and now you can't say Stackwise,
No.
one piece of technology or software you can't live without.
So that
Hmm.
would have been a different answer pre-April. So I guess
Hmm.
prior to April. But in April, I learned about Tango. And Tango, if I had been using Tango when I started Stackwise in August, I would already have a training platform ready to go for our hiring process. Tango is a free, there's paid as well, but it can be free, Chrome extension that will create step-by-step tutorials of a process that you're actually completing on your screen. So a lot of people would use a screen recorder like Loom, which is great. Loom's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's purely video. But again, going back to people learning different ways, right? So you could be recording a Loom and you could be creating a Tango simply by going through a process. And then someone that wants to watch you can use the Loom. And someone that wants to see written step-by-step instructions of how to complete something with screenshots could use Tango. And Tango does it for you automatically while you actually just go through the process on your screen. And it's amazing. It's awesome.
You mean like if I were, let's say I were logging into my Gmail and
Mhm,
forwarding an email message to you. You're
mhm.
saying that if I had Tango up, it would actually record the screencast, but also automatically like analyze and transcribe in text the steps that I was taking.
Yes. Yes. Every time you move your mouse to a clickable field or button, there's a little orange box that will appear around it. And Tango is tracking where your mouse goes, what you click, what you type. And then, like I said, yeah, it creates a text, a written step by step. First, the user did this, then they did this, then they did this. And then there's little screenshots that appear on the side next to it. So they can see on the screen where to click and they can read on the step by step tutorial where to click. And it's awesome.
This
It's
is
great.
becoming very quickly one of the most valuable podcast episodes I have ever recorded. We literally just a couple months ago signed up for Marblebox, which is an
Mhm.
outsourcing company.
Yeah,
And one of the things that we have to provide them, well, they have a lot of workflows on their own, but there are some things that
right.
are specific to us. And we literally have to have people, yeah, record themselves on Zoom, or whatever, and
Right.
capturing that and then writing it out. You
Mhm.
you just cut down an amazing amount of steps for us.
Oh yeah, it's incredibly fast. Oh no, it's I think let's see who told me about it. Nick told well, three people told me about it at
Yeah,
the Better conference in April, and I've been using it probably not even enough, and I feel like I use it every day.
dude, that
So
is unbelievable. I literally may have to schedule a call with you and my head of admin and finance because she is in charge of all this stuff and it's driving her crazy.
sure,
Um,
sure.
wow, I can't. Yeah, this is a very valuable episode. All right, one book that you're reading right now, or that you've read recently, or that you're excited and you want to share it with folks.
Okay, so I'm gonna take a little turn to Fiction Town because I know most people are gonna say like, "Hey, Jeb Blunt" or whatever, and those are all great
Yeah.
books. But I realized about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, that I'd lost my love for reading again because I felt like I was reading because I had to read. And
Mm,
so my daughter loves dinosaurs. I mean, loves them. And she convinced me to let her watch Jurassic Park. So I went back and read Jurassic Park, and now I'm reading The Lost World. I love reading again. It took going back to like a cool fiction story from my youth, and the book is so much different than the movies. I don't want to say
Yeah.
better. I don't want to be one of those people. It's like the
Yeah.
book's
Yeah. Yeah.
always better,
Yeah.
but it's different and it's exciting and it's fun. And so for anybody listening to this, if you wanted a self-help book or a business book, I'm sorry, I don't have that. But if you feel like reading is like you're not digging it as much anymore, take a break and go read some awesome historical fiction or whatever you like to read and get that love of reading back. Because we're coming up on the summer, so you can sit outside and read something that makes you happy.
I love it, man. How old's your daughter?
She's 8, and she's got a calendar. I bought her a calendar because she was asking me every day, Dad, when does the next Jurassic Park come out? When does the next Jurassic Park come out? I was like, circle June 10th, and said, please stop asking me. I will take you. Please stop asking me. So
That
yeah.
is phenomenal. I love it. My youngest is 10, and I think if she had asked me to read, a book like that, I'm not sure what I would have done, because I really love my nonfiction business books. But you're
Mhm.
right, man. I mean, you can get to a point where it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I just need to like be entertained and be
Yeah.
inspired, and like, what
Yeah.
do we call it when I was an English teacher? Willful suspension of disbelief, when
Yeah.
you allow
Yeah.
yourself to be carried away by the story in all of its
Mhm.
fiction. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah,
love it.
absolutely.
Beautiful, man, beautiful. One piece of advice, or a piece of advice that you would give to your younger self.
This was a tough one, but I remember reading it in the email prep you sent over.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't want to tell myself how things are going to go because I don't think they would have gone the way they've gone if I knew that they were going to go. So I think I would go back and I would say,
Wear pants to the interview.
wear pants, wear pants before you get on the plane. Always wear pants on a plane. Um, no, I think I would say trust your gut. I think that a lot of mistakes that I've made, I I overthought things and I didn't trust my intuition. And if I had, I would have made the right decision a lot longer. Eventually, I did, in most cases. But I think I would say trust your gut and go with what your feelings say.
I love it. And it jives so well with um choosing to read a fiction book, right? And it's like, you know what, just trust it. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, maybe it's gonna be silly, or I'm gonna get lost in it, or whatever. But yeah, now it's opened up your mind and kind of got you thinking in a different way.
I think a little differently sometimes. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, we need to. I love it. Okay. If you had the choice between now, you live in Texas, so this is probably a really bad question to ask you because it's pretty hot, I'm sure already. But if you had the choice between soup or gourmet marshmallows and hot chocolate, what would you choose?
I would go with soup.
Soup?
I'd go
What
with
kind?
soup. Yeah. So I learned to make a chicken sausage, sweet potato, kale soup.
Whoa.
And yeah, it was something I think we were getting in our like Hello Fresh deliveries back when we used to do that. And we would love it. It was great. And I thought to myself, like, I can go buy this stuff. It's not like I don't need it delivered to my house. I can go buy these 6 ingredients. And it's just, it's healthy-ish and it's great on a cold day. I know we don't get a lot of them in Texas, but it's a good meal and it makes me feel like I'm doing something right for my body. So yeah, I'd go with soup.
I love it, man. Well, I'm positive, 100% positive they don't have that one, but I am going to send you some soup from a company called Spoonful of Comfort, because
Okay.
we enjoy sending our guests on the show a gift, and we've given it to our employees, and it was like one of the greatest gifts they said they ever received in lieu of having an employee get together during COVID.
Very
So
cool.
I'm happy to send that to you, and I'll get your address offline. But
Okay. Well, thanks.
yeah, absolutely. What Before we sign off here, one final piece of advice or actionable step for the audience.
Yeah. So actually, I have two, and they're words that have helped me, and one's again, fiction, and one's from my dad. So the fiction one comes from my favorite fictional character that I wish was a real person, and that would be President Jeb Bartlett from The West Wing.
Ah, okay.
And I don't think it was the first episode, but it was the first season. He's giving a lecture and he says, "Decisions are made by those who show up."
Ooh,
And it's true. And I don't
yeah.
know if he was quoting somebody or if it was just Aaron Sorkin dialogue, but decisions are made by those that show up. And you mentioned that I was on the Elite Texas committee. I was the chair. I was on the board for IIT Texas. That's because I show up, and it's
Yeah.
because I'm willing to volunteer my time and volunteer to help. And the more often you do that, the more often doors open, and you meet new people, and it can help you grow your business. And I wouldn't be talking to you today. I wouldn't be running Stackwise if I hadn't shown up, if I hadn't made those connections and those relationships. So that's the fictional one. And then the real one comes from my dad. And I don't remember like him saying this specifically, but I know he has said it many times, was always do more than you have to do. And that's funny when you know me, because my favorite movie is Office Space. And Peter Gibbons says, only do as much as you have to do so you don't get fired. But in reality, I think it's really critical that you just do more than you have to do. Don't go so far above and beyond every single time that you wear yourself out and you have no time for yourself. But whether it's like pushing a shopping cart back that somebody left out in the parking lot,
Yeah.
or it's doing the extra 2 minutes like David Carruthers says,
Yeah.
like whatever it is, whether it's personal, relationship, business, just societal, like, man, just if we all just did like that one little bit of extra, like the world would be a better place. And if you do it consistently, it opens doors and it does create a lot of opportunity for people. So that's what I would suggest.
I love it, man. I tell you what, it's been a great episode, but you're just a darn good guy to know. Like, I'm really excited that we
I got you fooled.
That's awesome, man. I love it. Casey, it's been a pleasure having you on today. If people want to get in touch with you, or they want more Casey in their lives, what should they do? Where do they go?
Well, you can check out stackwise.com. It's STAKWISE. So there's no C in there. And you could learn more about Stackwise. You can reach out to me anytime. If you're not a client, you are a client, you want just to pick my brain. I love talking nerd insurance tech language. And my email is just Casey with a C, CASEY @stackwise.com. And actually, I've been told, and Jim, I'll probably reach out to you offline. I've been told by 4 or 5 people that there's no reason I shouldn't also be having a podcast, even though I know there's a lot of them. I think I would enjoy having conversations with people. So if anyone has any advice on that, they can reach out to me, and I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, well, dude, you and I can talk afterwards too. I'm closing in on 50 episodes for this one, and
That's
it's been
awesome.
a great adventure. But yeah, I would agree with everyone that told you that. I've had more fun in the last 7 months of this podcast being live, just getting to know awesome people like you, and really learning more than I ever learned in my entire 21-year career in insurance in just 7 months. So I highly recommend it. And honestly, you could do a whole podcast based on automate, innovate, and delegate, and have a ton of great guests on that would add value around that mantra, if that's the way you wanted to go. There's a lot of great stuff out there, man. So
Yeah, it's exciting to start with a blank slate. So I'll
yeah.
collect feedback, and maybe the next time we talk, we can have some other platform to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Casey, stick around with me for a second, but for
Sure.
everybody else, and for you and our audience, it's just been a pleasure having you on board today, man. I appreciate it.
Well, I really appreciate you making time, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yes, sir. Likewise. Folks, until next time, grow big or go home.